Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 701 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. do. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Monday, July 28th, 2025, and it looks like it's going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, A. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, although we might have him pop in a certain way a little later in the show to say hello. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Apologies for a bit of the weird start there for those who were watching live. The intro seemed to start and stop all over again. At our end, we were hearing a double sound, which was really weird, but we were able to fix that. I don't know if you guys were hearing that, but that's what we were hearing. So we had to try a couple of times until we fixed that situation. But it has been fixed, and now we are all here together. And as we always say, there are no problems, there are only solutions. Kids and cubs, since Mr. Grizzly's not here, I have to ask you, how is your mental health doing today? I hope it's doing very well. And if it's not, don't worry. The DAMFAM is here for you, right? We'll just take you into our arms and give you a big DAMFAM group hug. And hopefully that can help make it a little better. But if you're here in the chat, of course, we have wonderful and supporting members of the DAMFAM here willing to engage with you. So, and maybe bring a little sunshine to your day. At least that's what we hope happens if you're going through a bit of a tougher day today. For my part, kids and cubs, mental health is doing well. I have to admit that I took a bit of a weekend off. I didn't consume as much news as I normally do, which made today's show a little difficult to put together because not only did I not consume much news, but when I did started consuming the news to put the show together, there wasn't all that much, to be totally honest. It was a bit of a slower weekend. There are things, of course, because it's a busy world and lots going on. But it was harder to sort of come up with a theme today, I have to admit. And it took me a little while, but I did manage to get some inspiration from world events and local events here in Canada, I should say, more than world events, but all together, and was able to get something for you today. But I was concerned for a moment yesterday. I was thinking, I don't really have a show. All right, because before we move on, Let's look into the magic mirror. We have Kit Uncover, Kit Saucy, Kit PNC Bio, and Kit Elaine. Kit Jillian, Tavi G as well with us. Good morning to you all. Kit Mohan and family. Good morning. Hope everything is right with you. Kit Playing with 3D has joined us today. Good morning. So nice to see you, as has Kit Linda M. Wishing everyone a good morning here as well. So it's so nice to see you. We have Kit Bucky with us. I'm looking forward to your commentary, Kit Bucky. Always puts some good stuff in the chat for us to read. Kit Kat W is with us as well, wishing everyone a good morning in the chat. And to all our listeners, too, I am sure. Kit Saucy is with us, saying, I thought my brain was glitching for a second. No, it wasn't you, it was us. Yes, Kid Jillian, I had my own echo chamber for a bit. That's well played. Well played. 25 beaver points. There you go. Let's see, who else do we have here? Kit Tom. Yay. Hi. Nice to see you. Good morning to you. Wishing good morning to all the friends here. Let's see, who else do we have here in the chat? Kit Katie Canuck. Our local superhero. That's a good superhero name. All right. And I believe that's everyone here sliding across the plate for a hello this morning. And of course, I'm seeing here lots of chat already. Oh, Mike H coming in saying, morning all. Hello. Good morning to you. Make an exception while I'm still doing the intro and people are popping in so that I can wish them good morning too. But I see you. I see you through our magic mirror here. Kids and cubs. Yes, my mental health doing well. Like I said, disconnected for a little bit because sometimes you have to. And on a Saturday, I went to a lovely intimate concert. There's a local group here in a Beaver Launch land called Laser Bear. Um, that uh, basically, I believe they call the music that they do Boss Mustache Rock, if I remember that correctly. It's a duo, at least on the night that we went to go see them perform. And someone with whom comprised of two people, one of whom uh, was an actor and a colleague in the play Arsenic and Old Lace I did a few years ago, and a gem of guy. And the other one of the first fans, I think probably the second fan of the show that happened to recognize me in public and say hello. And of course, as you know, I think I related the story when it happened. I was, of course, my usual charming and eloquent self, which the conversation pretty much went, "Hey, are you Mr. Beaver?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he said something that I don't remember, and then I just went, blah, blah, blah. It didn't sound intelligent at all, and probably made it came across as a total doorknob. But I have since been forgiven, it would seem. And I had an opportunity to see them together. I was supposed to go last year, actually, to the intimate concert, and I was thinking about it all the time. And then on the day that it happened, it just escaped my mind completely, and I felt terrible. So when I saw the date of this year's, I put it on my calendar on the wall, written in ink, then put it in my electronic calendar and put it everywhere and talked about it every day for the week before to make sure I would not miss it. Because I felt so bad last year because I had promised I would be there and it just slipped my mind. So I did go, and it was a wonderful evening and good music and a good crowd that was there of the nicest, sweetest people. And it was nice to see some old friends as well because there were other people with whom we had worked on the play that were there as well in the audience. So it was nice to see some friends and to have a nice evening of music. And yesterday, um, with Kit Connie, who you may remember, she's been a guest on the show a couple of times talking about the Rose Foundation charity that she was working with at the time. And she had a lovely garden party soiree. And so my beaver sweetie and I attended that, and it was wonderfully hosted again with a lovely crowd of people and such exceptionally good food. Kit Connie is a whiz in the kitchen, and basically, uh, there was food for a lot more people than the people that were there, so we didn't have to be. Um, uh, we didn't have to worry about overloading our plates. Let's just put it that way, and everybody else not having enough. So we were very well received, and it was a lovely day from about like 4:30 till 7. So a lovely event and allowed us to get home in time to get a good night's sleep and wind down. So perfectly timed, perfect food, perfect company, perfect everything. The weather was nice. So yeah, it was just a wonderful weekend, and somewhere in there, we went swimming for a little bit to the local pool. There's a local pool around here that's actually an outdoor pool, which was very lovely. So get to enjoy some sun and some cooling water. And yeah, so nothing too wild or crazy, but just some nice events and time to disconnect, do something other than politics for a while with nice people who you care about and care about you. And sometimes that's all it's about. So I had a wonderful weekend. I'm feeling refreshed. And of course, because you know I'm a big fan of tennis, right now the National Bank Open is going on, which is Canada's big stop on the annual tennis tour. So my eyes are glued to the TV for that. And then, of course, there's the World Aquatics Championships going on right now, and swimming and diving have started in earnest, and some medals have already come Canada's way. And of course, I am definitely watching that, particularly the platform diving, because that is so impressive. The women are jumping from 20 meters up, and the men are jumping from 27 meters up. And Devin Haru and his crew did this thing where they went on the top of a platform and sort of like got the shot from looking down. And I was like, yee, that's scary. And Molly Carlson had one of our two-time silver medalist at the World Championships, had done a video from the Montreal Olympic Stadium, the Olympic pool, where they had some of the 10-meter divers go up to the 20-meter platform and to just take a jump. And even some of them were like looking down and going, "Yeah, this is high. It's scary." Um, just watching those two clips, my knees were wobbling. So I've been I've jumped once off the 3 or the 5-meter tower maybe at Carleton. I can't remember which one, if it's a 3 or a 5, once, and, I did it once, just once. I've jumped twice off a 3-meter springboard, and again, when I say jump, I just mean jump, and, um I'm not afraid of heights per se because I can get on roller coasters and I can go on top of the CN Tower and look down the ground from there, and I'm fine. Um, but when I'm on a diving board like this, once the rails run out and there's just the board and the board is wobbly, it's like it seems that I'm afraid of free fall, but I'm not afraid of heights, which is kind of uh, interesting. So, but yes, the 3-meter springboard got 2 jumps off before I decided that was enough for a lifetime as well. So, so when I'm watching people just standing on a 20-meter platform and sort of like coming close to the edge, and like the camera goes over and it's like, this is what we see from there. It's like, oh God. I feel uncomfortable sitting at home watching it. So, uh, yeah, but the dives are just spectacular. I mean, I saw this guy from the United States. I think it was do a quadruple or quintuple somersault. No, the guy from Romania did a quintuple somersault to land, and there's this guy from the United States that just did this spectacular dive at the end to clinch gold from the 27-meter platform, and just oof, man, like I said. I understand the concept of spotting because we use that in dance when we're turning a lot. Um, but when you're diving, I mean, you really have to make sure that you're spotting the water, right? If you want to have a clean entry, not have something terrible happen to you. And it's just like, so I'm going to like revolve around myself 5 times. I'm going to spin on an axis 5 times uh, within the space of about 3 seconds. 3 or 4 seconds, and still find the water is something that I find incredibly impressive, especially with all the adrenaline that must be going through your body as you're taking a jump from that high up. So, yeah, some great competition out there if you have an opportunity to take a look at it over the course of the week. The platform diving is now over. There's other diving going on, but all of that is available, I believe, on replay on CBC Gem if you want to take a look at it. And there was a silver medal for Canada as a result of the high diving in women's uh, platform diving. Um, her first name is Simone, and I can't remember her last name off the top of my head, unfortunately. But she uh, had an excellent final dive. It seems that uh, in normal platform diving competitions, they have 4 dives, but at the World Championships, they have 4 dives preliminary and then 2 more dives later on for 6, which is tough on the body. So it's a more grueling competition, but still worthy of a world champion, right? So I believe her name is Simone Lethead or Leathead. I'm not sure how you exactly pronounce it. Um, so Leathead, and she finished with 314.5 points for the silver medal. Molly Carlson, who was in the event and doing well up until the last dive, she was in second place, but the last dive is the one that she had the shaky, or more than shaky, the very scary dive. A couple of weeks ago in competition, it was a dive from the platform for which you take a running start and you jump on the platform to keep going. And when she jumped, she actually hit the edge of it and sort of slipped and did a 2.5 somersault. Which was not the dive she had planned, into the pool and was okay, but was shaken. And her last dive of the competition was that dive. And she didn't, unfortunately, nail it as well as she would have liked to in order to maintain her podium position in there. So, but that she was competing at all so soon after such a frightening event um, was all to her credit, and she had the best attitude um, going into it. But if you happen to be um, searching online and looking through a Devin Haru or friends feed, you will see an interview with her at the end after that, and um, he asks her specifically about that, and commends her on the brave face that she's been keeping and the positive attitude, but asks a question that goes to the heart of it, and that's only the type of question that a journalist can ask, a particular sports journalist, if the athlete really trusts them, and they've built a rapport over the last bit of years, and she was willing to be vulnerable in camera and give an honest answer, and there were some tears. Um, but that's the mark of a champion right there. That's the mark of a champion, to take a question like that and deal with it head on, and uh, despite putting on the brave face, despite trying to get back on the horse, as one would say immediately after a fall or something scary, and hoping that the short memory will kick in. Um, to take the question, she did handle it. She handled it like a champ, even though the answer was rather emotional. So, good work all around. I'm when I watched the competition and watched the answer to that question. I could not have been more proud of her personally, just as a true ambassador of the sport. So I'm not sure if you know that we exist, Molly Carlson, but um, you may not have won a medal this time, but you certainly won my heart. And I'm sure you won the heart of many Canadians with your determination, your poise, um, uh, good example of getting back on and doing it again. And you know what? Not having the success that you would have liked to have had, but still standing for an interview and when asked the question that kills, or at least that punches in the gut emotionally, uh, being real and authentic about it. So uh, you may not have gotten a medal, but you've won. You've definitely won because that's how champions do it. So, and I have no doubt that we'll be seeing Molly Carlson on a world championship podium again, and it won't take that long. She's got the stuff. She's got the stuff. All right. We'll have more about Canadians who make us proud later in the show because in about I think about 40 minutes from now, Summer McIntosh is going to be going for her second gold medal of the World Aquatics Championships. As you know, she has a drive for five. She's trying to win five individual gold medals. And I think the first and only person who's done this at a World Championships is Michael Phelps himself. And she got off to a good start in the 400 meter. The first day of swim events was a big day for Summer McIntosh because she had to swim the qualifying heats in the 400 IM sorry, not the 400 IM, the 400 meter free style to get to the final. And then she had to swim her heat and her semifinal for the 200 fly, if I am not mistaken. I might be wrong on that. I'm just going to take a look here just to be sure here. No, I think it's the 200 freestyle. Sorry. Nope. Those are heats. It's not the final. Sorry. Yeah, I cannot remember the event on the off the top of my head. I am so sorry. Yes. Um, so anyway, Summer McIntosh did qualify in both events for their respective finals, which is very encouraging for all of us who are cheering her on. Now, on the 400 meter race against, of course, the great Katie Ledecky was in that race. She did not attempt a world record. A lot of people were wondering if she was going to try that, and she didn't. And with good uh, good reason, because she had to swim, I think, four times that day. So, she had to manage her energy. So, in her the other one is the 200 IM. I should have known that because she's a medley specialist. So basically, she swam her 400 and she finished second in her heat, just outtouched, but wasn't forcing at the end to try to win it. So somebody came along ahead and got that. And then she had to swim her 200 medley heat and then she got to the semifinals in that one. She swam her 400 free final later that evening and won her first gold medal there, and in very convincing fashion. By the way, Katie Ledecky, who was her main competition, ended up being third overall in that race, and Katie Ledecky came in at 3 minutes 58:49 seconds. Uh, Li Bingji from China, or Bingji Li, came in at 3:58:21, setting a new Asian record. But Summer McIntosh won in 3:56:26. She was nearly 2 seconds, 2 full seconds faster than the silver medalist in this race, which is just phenomenal. And then 30 minutes later, or less than 30 minutes later, she had to go in the pool and swim the semifinal for the 200 IM to qualify for that final. And she got out of the semifinal in first place, despite having just won a gold. And in another um, a good bit of good news for Canada, Mary Sophie Harvey finished second out of the semifinal qualifying. So both the Canadians have qualified 1 and 2. So there might be a possibility of a double podium for Canada in less than an hour at the World Championships here, because they are scheduled to be in the water around 8:20 this morning Eastern time. If you are watching that, in order to yeah, to go for that other medal. And if you were following Summer McIntosh, Kits and Cubs, her 5 events, and I'm just looking here on my phone to make sure I've got them. So yesterday was the 400 free. Today is the 200 medley. On July 31st will be the 200-meter butterfly. On August 2nd, the 800-meter freestyle. And then on August 3rd, the 400-meter medley. So those are the dates of the 5 finals. So after today, there will not be a final for her for another 3 days. So she'll have time to rest before that. And that's that's good. And then have a couple of days to rest again before the 800-meter freestyle, which is the one that if one was to say that one of them was in doubt in terms of get gold medal, it would be that one where she'll be facing Katie Ledecky again. And that 800 free is Katie Ledecky's stronger event now. So we will get to see 2 greats go head-to-head a second time. And it makes for a very exciting competition. So yes, we will be keeping an eye on the 200-meter race here as the show is going on, and hopefully we will be able to bring you some results in real time, because it would be nice to see her achieve that goal. It's a very lofty goal, but yeah, we're cheering for her. Absolutely, because why not? Why not set your goals really high? So if you're in the Eastern time block, 8:19 a.m. is when it's going to happen. Give or take a few minutes, but they're usually pretty good at keeping a tight ship at swimming events. So we will. I'll have it here on my little cell phone on the side, and hey, who knows? Maybe even give you a play-by-play. We won't be able to show you the images, of course, because they're copyrighted. But nothing says that we won't be able to enjoy the race in real time in some other way. I'm very excited for this. It's just so nice to have a Canadian just kicking all kinds of ass, right? It doesn't matter what the event is, but you know, uh, I get a little boost when we are absolutely the best at something, and just undeniably so. So it's I've been doing my patriotic duty, sitting in front of the TV and waving my little maple leaf and going, "Go, Summer, go!" Trying to encourage her on from this end. So yes, we'll be following that over the next week, and it's going to be very exciting. All right, kids and cubs. Yeah. Uh, there's lots of weirdness going on in Canada lately. I don't know how to describe it, but just some really weird stuff. Um, when we left the show on Friday, I very briefly spoke of what was going on in Alberta with regard to the attempt to create a new progressive conservative party, or to revive the brand. And it seemed that that had hit a snag for MLAs Peter Guthrie and Scott Sinclair, who were attempting to do that. It seems that Danielle Smith uh, got upset. They tried to do that. So this is according to Jason Markusoff here at CBC. 2 former United Conservative MLAs will join with the centrist Alberta Party and file to remit the Progressive Conservatives, and they'll abandon initial plans to launch a new party under the old brand that ruled Alberta for 44 years. Since Peter Guthrie and Scott Sinclair announced plans earlier in June for a petition drive to revive the PC party, two things happened to get them to change course, Guthrie told CBC News in an interview on Wednesday. First, the UCP sent a cease and desist letter to the two MLAs turfed from Premier Danielle Smith's caucus, warning them that their claim to the PC name would violate the UCP's intellectual property rights. Um, yeah, we have to remember that Guthrie was thrown out of the party for raising attention to the corrupt care scandal and wanting more action taken to look into that. And Scott Sinclair had announced that he was intending to vote against the budget. So both of them got turfed. The second thing that happened is that Alberta Party President Lindsay Amantea proposed that independent MLAs join her existing party's fold, and together they could file a name change to Progressive Conservative with Elections Alberta. Quote, "We figured, well, they have the infrastructure, we have the momentum and the people," said Guthrie, Smith's former infrastructure minister. Quote, "So we decided this is something that could get us to official party recognition faster without getting caught up in these legal wranglings with the UCP that they like to play." Following an agreement in principle between the two sides, allies to Guthrie and Sinclair have already joined the Alberta Party's board and will soon occupy half its director positions. Guthrie figures that with Elections Alberta's approval, the party's name change could be complete by September, months ahead of where they'd have been if the independent MLAs were launching a party from scratch. The UCP caucus turfed spring. Guthrie was removed after demanding a public inquiry into the healthcare contracting, while Sinclair got heaved for suggesting he'd vote against the provincial budget, as I mentioned earlier. Smith had cried foul against her ousted caucus members' idea to take on the name of the PCs, the party that governed the province from 1971 to 2015 before merging with the Wildrose Party to form the UCP in 2017. The Premier's team has pointed to a provision in elections law added under ex-Premier Jason Kenney that restricts a new party from adopting a name similar to that of the predecessor party to a merger. Elections Alberta has listed the old Progressive Conservative Association of Alberta's moniker as a reserved party name, but has said it would have to judge its validity once a new party application was in. However, that same rule does not apply to a party that already exists but applies to change its name. Clever, clever, clever. Dustin Van Voogd, the UCP's executive director, confirmed his party sent the legal letter to Guthrie and Sinclair because, quote, "the PC Alberta name, logo, and goodwill were being used by people with no right to it," he said in an email, except that the people that are currently using it now are disrespecting it and pissing all over it. But okay. Quote, "Their attempt to usurp the goodwill associated with our legacy party in order to confuse voters and avoid the hard work of building a political movement is particularly insulting to the thousands of former PC party members and supporters who are now contributing members of the UCP." Laying it on a little thick there. Laying it on a little thick. With their new party, Guthrie and Sinclair were promising a moderate and anti-separatist alternative to Smith's UCP, but also an option for lapsed Tory voters who had supported the New Democrats in recent elections. That's the ideological space the PCs used to occupy as well, between the Wildrose Party and more progressive groups. It's also the turf the Alberta Party had tried to carve out, but has only ever elected an MLA once in 2015, the then leader of the party, and only attracted 0.7% of the province-wide vote in the last election in 2023. It's become a political refuge of sort for former PCs. Past leader Stephen Mandel was a cabinet minister under former Tory Premier Jim Prentice, while Amantea, the Alberta Party's current interim leader, was a Tory campaign organizer before the UCP merger. Quote, "We are exploring opportunities and partnerships that would raise the level of political discourse and refocus the conversation on improving the lives of all Albertans, not just insiders," Amantea said in a statement. "The coming weeks and months will be an exciting time." In recent years, other small parties have legally been renamed, the Social Credit to the Pro-Life Alberta Political Association in 2017, and the Buffalo Party became the Separatist Republican Party earlier this year. So interesting little loophole in the law in that you cannot start a new party under a name that has already been used or that is claimed to be intellectual property. But you can, if an existing party wants to change its name, that's legal. So, very interesting and clever move by everyone involved in this. Now, of course, we have when I like to find out what's going on in Alberta, there are a couple of people that I like to check in on. And Nick, of course, is one good friend of the show. But one of the other ones that I like to check in with is Mr. David Kleiman-Haga, who we've had on the show, I think, in our first season to have a talk about what was going on in Alberta. And if you like to follow Alberta politics and want some good sources, the breakdown is one, but the other one, albertapolitics.ca, is where you want to go, and that's where you'll find David Kleiman-Haga's writings. And he brings a little color and texture to this move. He says the following here. Uh-oh. Looks like those two independent MLAs who want to reboot Alberta's Progressive Conservative Party think they can use the moribund Alberta Party as a vector of their political resurrection story. Hasn't this been tried before by doomed progressive conservatives? That was a rhetorical question. The answer is yes, by former Edmonton Mayor and PC Cabinet Minister Stephen Mandel in 2015. Mr. Mandel's Alberta Party gambit was his second political comeback bid after he retired from Edmonton civic politics in October 2013. It was marginally less successful than the first in 2014 when PC Premier Jim Prentice appointed him unelected to the health portfolio, and he subsequently won a by-election in Edmonton-Whitemond that fall, serving as MLA for 5.5 months until the PCs were swept away by the NDP in May 2015. Credit where credit is due, though, Mr. Mandel did manage to raise the Alberta Party's popular vote from 2.2% to 9.1% before he gave up the idea in June 2019 and retired from politics again. By 2023, the Alberta Party's vote share was even lower than when it started when Mr. Mandel signed on, down to less than 1%. Okay, Messieurs Guthrie and Sinclair aren't doomed yet, but if they don't want to be, it's said here they should stay the heck away from the Alberta Party. Somebody should have told them about the curse of the Alberta Party, the little party with a great name that just can't get on the radar. Well, they can't say now that they weren't warned. The story of the two MLAs Plan B was broken on Twitter, X, and it says here yesterday, but this was written on the 24th, so on July 23rd, a couple of days ago, about 5 days ago here. So the story of the two MLAs Plan B was broken down on July 23rd by The Breakdown, not to be confused with the now defunct Broke Down. There's a lot to say about them, which managed to get its hands on an email from Mr. Guthrie explaining and identified someone that Danielle Smith's UCP had managed to keep him and his sidekick from using the PC name, at least for the time being. Instead, the email said, quote, last week we began discussions with the Alberta Party, who reached out to us and expressed openness to collaboration. We've since agreed to move forward by expanding their board to include some of our team and initiating steps towards a name change via Elections Alberta. And yes, that email was really from him, Mr. Guthrie confirmed when asked by media later yesterday. And that would be on the 24th, yesterday in this case. UCP Executive Director Dustin Van Voogd also told the media that his party had sent the two a cease and desist letter telling the two MLAs it still owned the name and they couldn't use it. And Alberta Party leader Lindsay Amante was quoted in the same story saying, quote, we are exploring opportunities and partnerships. The Alberta Party started out in the 1980s as an alliance of far-right fringe parties that a decade later somehow morphed into either a vaguely more progressive version of the Progressive Conservatives or a home for Alberta Liberals who recognized their party name would never allow them to form government, depending on whom you're talking to. In 2011, former Alberta Liberal leader Dave Taylor crossed the floor to become the party's first MLA. In 2015, party leader Greg Clark became the only Albertan ever to be elected as an Alberta Party MLA, a job he held until Mr. Mandel pushed him aside in 2018. Just before that happened, in the fall of 2017, a Calgary New Democrat MLA crossed the floor and joined the Alberta Party. Karen McPherson didn't do much for the party either, but she did sort of make it official that it's the party of last resort in Alberta politics. In 2018, Calgary MLA Rick Fraser, elected as a progressive conservative in 2012, joined the Alberta Party caucus. None of the floor crossers were around after the UCP's decisive victory under Jason Kenney in 2019. Mr. Guthrie, MLA for Airdrie Cochrane, and Mr. Sinclair, MLA for Lesser Slave Lake, both of whom were kicked out of the UCB caucus earlier this year for not towing Premier Danielle Smith's line, really looked like they were onto something when they came up with the idea of reviving the Progressive Conservative name at the start of July. Media loved the story, which promised a more interesting contest than the race between the UCP and the NDP led by Naheed Nenshi, who back before he became mayor of Calgary was reputed to have an interest in the Alberta Party as a political vehicle too. Before you knew it, political insiders were handing around a poll by a polling company that no one had ever heard of, suggesting that if a progressive conservative labeled party entered the race before the next election, it would take votes from both the UCP and NDP and be tied with the NDP in critical Calgary ridings. Alas, the authors of the survey, which was in the field in the first week of July, never returned my emails, so my questions about their methodology remain unanswered. One of the company's directors, according to the corporate records, has the same name as Alberta Party's interim leader. But if the poll got it right about the potential for PC voters to find a new old home, you can see why the UCP is sending its rebel former MLAs cease and desist letters telling them to stop using the PC name and, as is widely rumored, plotting an early election call next spring. If the Alberta Party curse holds, the UCP and NDP can probably both now breathe a sigh of relief. So yeah. Indeed. So that's the first little bit. Danielle didn't want any competition, so claimed intellectual property rights over the PC name. Then there was a second little bit of weirdness coming from that area, and we kind of learned over the past few days that there are some people um, who are pushing for Alberta independence um, who might have been actually negotiating Americans on that they could actually make that happen, which is extremely, extremely concerning. Because that should not be happening. There was a report by a group called Desmog International, and this is David Falk who writes for them. It says here, Trump officials discussed $500 million Alberta independence loan, separatists claims. And the article kind of goes something like this. Officials in the Donald Trump administration discussed loaning the oil-rich province of Alberta hundreds of millions of dollars to help it become independent from Canada, a prominent separatist is claiming. Quote, I met the senior U.S. administrative officials just a couple of steps away from the president himself, recalled Dennis Modry, the former CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project, a group devoted to pushing Alberta towards self-determination through a provincial referendum. Quote, when we walked into the conference room, the first comment was, we recognize and support Alberta becoming the sovereign nation for the first time, he said. Modry was a member of the Commonwealth of Alberta delegation to Washington that in April traveled to the U.S. Capitol to outline the supposed benefits of a sovereign Alberta and its vast energy resources can provide to the United States. No media outlet has yet reported on what was actually discussed in meetings with Trump officials, but Modry revealed some specifics during a recent Alberta event promoting a Western independence agenda that was attended by Desmog. And this article here was written on July 22nd. And since then, there have been clips of that meeting that have come out. And if you are following the Breakdowns Twitter account, they've made public some of those clips of the people who were involved in this saying this out loud. Quote, the first I had heard about it was from Tom Lukasik when he was being interviewed by Nate Pike of The Breakdown, suggesting that there was some type of activity, but he hadn't got into very many specifics. And then a few days later, this came out, and then a few days later, we got the audio clips from The Breakdown. So this is a real thing. There is a group of people that went down there on behalf of Alberta I don't know under what authority, uh, to negotiate terms for the breakup of the country with a foreign nation. That sounds wrong. That sounds like it should be illegal if it's not. Anyway, quote, we talked about a $500 million transition loan that we would only draw down on as necessary as we work with the U.S. to transition from a province to a country, said Modry. He also claimed that they discussed a plan to prop up Alberta's currency where, quote, the U.S. agrees to take every Alberta citizen's Canadian dollar and then exchange it for one U.S. dollar. The prospect of America recognizing Alberta as the 51st state isn't currently on the table, but it could be if separatists manage to get enough signatures to trigger a referendum declaring Alberta's sovereignty from Canada, and then win enough votes to pass the referendum, he added. Quote, Alberta, of course, can provide energy security, he said. It can also provide water security, agricultural security, forestry security, metal security, coal security, plus an industrious workforce, so there is tremendous benefit to the U.S. to work with us. DeSmog reached out to the Alberta Prosperity Project and the Trump administration seeking more clarity about Modry's claims, but didn't receive a response. Modry's remarks came during a mid-June separatism event in Red Deer, Alberta, that was organized by the right-wing political website Rebel News. One of the title sponsors was the America Fund, an organization that believes, quote, in a bold new future, one where Alberta joins the U.S. as the 51st state. Attendees expressed praise for policies and actions undertaken by the Trump administration, including its escalating deportations of immigrants. When a member of the audience asked how an independent Alberta would control immigration, Peter Downing, speaking on behalf of the America Fund, said, well, they, America in this case, got this wonderful agency called ICE, referring to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency that has triggered massive protests across the U.S. due to its aggressive raids on immigrant communities. Raids on immigrant communities. Downing explained as, quote, got a lot of bad dudes, tough dudes with guns, and ICE is, quote, willing to deal with it and send them all back. Some media reporting in Canada has framed the separatist movement as being primarily motivated by a lack of political representation in Ottawa and federal regulations that limit expansion of Alberta's oil and gas industry. But David Parker, a former federal and provincial conservative staffer who was the founder of Take Back Alberta, a conservative political advocacy group, highlighted mass immigration as a key motivator for seeking provincial independence. Quote, if Canada continues to bring in the number of people that they are at the rate that they are, it will be a failed state, he said. It's being used to dilute the population. They're degrading our quality of life, our medical system, our healthcare, our education system. It's all falling apart because of mass immigration. Yes, it's all because of mass immigration. It's not because Danielle Smith is actually just not caring enough about these issues to invest in them in the way that they're supposed to. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Danielle Smith just a couple of years ago was bragging about trying to boost the population of Alberta to 10 million. It's 5 now. We brought in about 1 million immigrants in 1 year. And now they're claiming that it was that 1 million that is making everything fail. But it wasn't the 5 million that Danielle Smith was trying to bring in. To Alberta, specifically. Not 5 million throughout all of Canada. But yes, this is why everything's falling apart. Not because Danielle Smith has been systematically dismantling all of it. That was echoed by Cameron Davies, leader of the Alberta Republicans, a separatist political party. Davies, who recently lost the provincial by-election in Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills, cited recent hopes of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith to get the mid-sized city of Red Deer to 1 million people by 2050. Quote, that is a leftist agenda policy, he said of the Conservative Premier's plan, and it needs to be rejected by every Conservative. Yes, Danielle Smith is a leftist. Yeah, I know. I'll let you giggle. These and other remarks were met with frequent applause and occasional whoops and hollers from the mostly middle and senior-aged audience gathered at the Red Deer Curling Club. The identity of Alberta in opposition to the rest of Canada came up a lot at the event. Albertans can be narrowly defined as, quote, hard workers, according to the Western Standard publisher and president Derek Fildebrand, adding that Albertans are less deferential towards institutions compared to Ontarians. The province has always had a more American ethos, he said. It was not peace, order, and good government. It was life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay. Yet admiration for the US was linked by one speaker to a very specific brand of American ideology promoting small government. Davies from the America Fund noted approvingly that some US states are attempting to pass legislation that severely limits the jurisdiction and power of the federal government. Dozens of these states, Davies explained, quote, have either passed legislation or are passing legislation for the Convention of States. He was referring to the movement with ties to the Texas evangelical pastor and oil billionaire Tim Dunn, which aims to implement Project 2025 like policy through permanent constitutional change and is receiving endorsements from politicians such as Sarah Palin, Fox News host Sean Hannity, and numerous members of the Trump administration and cabinet. Support for Trump and his policies is stronger than might be expected in Canada. The Washington Post recently cited polls suggesting that The Washington Post recently cited polls suggesting that many conservative voters in Canada held a more favorable view of Trump over Kamala Harris during last year's American presidential election. Beaudry said that if the separatists at the event were successful in passing an independence referendum, they could potentially count on Trump or the U.S. Secretary of State to back the outcome. He claimed that this is a request he made to the U.S. officials during their meeting in Washington. Quote, at the time of the successful referendum, you acknowledge Alberta's sovereignty to the Alberta government and to the rest of the world. And this is in exchange for a $500 million loan that they can draw upon as they're trying to form the new country. Because, yes, if you're trying to form a new country that is landlocked and has no ability to get its resources to Tidewater, that also doesn't have military anymore, nor a diplomatic corps, nor a whole bunch of other things, like, for example, police and tax processing, and which is why they're trying to get that, to try to establish, trying to use Canada's money to create those systems for themselves in advance of separating. But since they don't have that, I'm sure that $500 million is all that they're going to need in order to accomplish this. And loans, not actually investment or anything. David Kleiman-Haga, again, on this here, writes, Back in 2018, I asked, do we need a Canadian version of the Logan Act to put a stop to dangerous freelance diplomacy? The proximate cause of this rhetorical query was the supposed to be secret visit to the Trump White House that former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper was scheduled to make a few days later. This happened while the federal government responded to the last time U.S. President Donald Trump, acting in bad faith, broke a trade agreement between Canada and the United States. Canadians, including the government of Canada, were apparently not supposed to know about this covert meeting. They probably never would have had it not been for a blunder by someone in the White House who phoned up the Canadian embassy in Washington to ask if anyone was coming along with the former Conservative Prime Minister. Oops. Whatever Mr. Harper was up to there seems never to have been established, although news reports at the time speculated he was going to speak with John Bolton, the U.S. National Security Advisor of the moment, and Larry Kudlow, Mr. Trump's economic advisor at the time. We know he attended the meeting on July 2nd because an Associated Press photographer snapped him scurrying out of the White House security gate afterwards. Oh, well. Interesting. And yep, indeed, July 2nd, 2018, here in CBC. And I will show you this, kits and cubs, right here on the screen, since we have the opportunity to do it. But yeah, right here. Stephen Harper spotted leaving the White House's West Wing. Yeah. Former Prime Minister was expected to meet with two Trump advisors. This was Catherine Tunney at the time, who wrote the article. But yes, there we go. That's, as you see here, the image of him that had been captured as he was leaving. There you go. We weren't supposed to know that this was happening. It was supposed to be kept that a former Prime Minister of Canada going in to have some of these types of discussion of the future of Canada when he was no longer the prime minister, the person democratically elected, to be able to have these discussions. Perhaps attending in his capacity as Supermo of the Neoliberal Internationale, known officially then as the International Democrat Union, and since rebranded slightly so as to not be confused with the American political party with a similar name. Perhaps it was just a social call on Mr. Bolton, known to hold similarly belligerent opinions about Russia. I doubt Mr. Harper was actually trying to harm Canada, but as I wrote at the time, the potential for harm was nevertheless real. After all, I said, quote, it's a well-established principle in diplomacy, the real kind, practiced by diplomats, that freelance negotiations of this sort have the effect of undermining any government's position. Unlike 2018, we now have a group of people from Alberta who actually want to break up Canada and ludicrously declare Alberta to be a separate nation, traveling to the United States and trying to cut deals with unnamed American officials. And while these advocates of Alberta's separation 51st statism or whatever certainly don't enjoy the statue of Mr. Harper, who is now also the chair of Alberta's Pension Management Crown Corporation, they do claim to be speaking with officials of the second Trump administration in the United States about how to best break up the American Republic's next door neighbor and historic best friend. If the report by Dismung International last week is accurate, the delegation from the so-called Alberta Prosperity Project appears to think it would be a good idea to sell out the country for something less than the modern nation-state equivalent of a mess of pottage, a ludicrously low $500 million loan from the United States to cover the costs of setting up a landlocked new petrostate on the North American continent. A loan, for crying out loud. Quote, I met the senior U.S. administrative officials just a couple steps away from the president himself, Dismount quoted former Alberta Prosperity Project CEO Dennis Modry telling a pro-independence event in Red Deer of a visit he and other APP leaders made to Washington last spring. When we walked into the conference room, the first comment was, we recognize and support Alberta becoming the sovereign nation for the first time. Now, we have no idea with whom Dr. Modry was chit-chatting or whether this is an accurate memory of what was said. But while the Alberta Prosperity Project can be fairly described as a pretty marginal group, they do appear to have active support from Alberta's United Conservative Party government. So right off the top, it should be obvious why this kind of freelance diplomacy is dangerous. Since some readers are bound to call this kind of behavior treason, I do not believe it meets the legal definition of that term in Section 46 of the Criminal Code of Canada, which limits the definition to physical attacks on the head of state and other leaders, attempts to overthrow the government of the country or a province, fighting against the Canadian Armed Forces, assisting an enemy at war with Canada, and so on. Part 3 of the Emergencies Act, which allows Cabinet to declare an, quote, international emergency in the event of a crisis, quote, involving Canada and or one or more other countries that arises from acts of intimidation or coercion or the real and imminent use of serious force or violence, and that is so serious as to be a national emergency, might provide a theoretical remedy. Presumably, when this was drafted, no one imagined the hostile country would be the United States. But that is a drastic step for when it's too late to head the crisis off at the pass with more practical and limited measures designed to prevent an emergency from occurring in the first place. Which is what brings us back to the Logan Act, the venerable U.S. legislation that since 1799 has made it a crime to carry on unauthorized negotiations with foreign governments. Named not for its advocates, but for George Logan, the pacifist Quaker state legislator from Pennsylvania who sailed to France to try as a private citizen to end an undeclared war between France and the United States over the American failure to repay debts to France. Logan's apparent success so upset the Federalists in both houses of Congress that they drafted and passed a bill outlawing what he did, signed into law by President John Adams on January 30th, 1799. By the way, in 1801, Logan was elected to the U.S. Senate, so his efforts must have had some popular support. The Logan Act, as it came to be colloquially known, says, quote, any citizen of the United States, wherever he may be, who, without authority of the United States, directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government or any officer or agent thereof, with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government or of any officer or agent thereof, in relation to any disputes or controversies with the United States, or to defeat the measures of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. The Logan Act has remained on the books ever since for the obvious reasons that there is a real need to prevent such interventions, all the more so in the globalized and corporatized world of the 21st century. Its mere presence is a useful reminder of the necessity of a state's government holding a monopoly on diplomacy. It's all very well and must remain legal for deluded folks to advocate terrible ideas, including theocracy, opposition to immunization against disease, and separation of one or more provinces from the Dominion, all of which appear to be policies of the UCP under Premier Danielle Smith. But plotting with officials of government on how to implement such a plan is another, or should be, reality of the schemes of the Alberta government and extremist fringe groups which it supports, like the APP, not to mention the Free Alberta strategy, whose tentacles extend right into the Premier's office, where one of its three authors is the Premier's Chief of Staff. Yeah, that is rather concerning. Likewise, it is time to recognize the sad reality of the fact our great neighbor on the southern side of the world's longest undefended border can no longer be considered either an ally or a friend. The need for a similar prohibition in Canadian law on freelance diplomacy is a matter of the utmost urgency in defense of the realm. Um, so, yeah, some questions here um, to see whether or not something like the Logan Act would be useful in Canada. It's a question to be asked. However, um, if we are going to do that, I would say that we probably have to do that, uh, write it slightly differently than the one in the United States, because even though the Logan Act exists, nobody has ever been successfully prosecuted under the Logan Act. The United States has a couple of acts like that that exist, but for some reason, um, nobody has either been successfully charged under, or for some reason, doesn't seem to have much of a penalty. The other one, I think, is the Hatch Act, which prevents people from benefiting personally from their position. Like, for example, when Ivanka Trump got to those patents with China for a whole bunch of things while she was working for her dad in the White House, that should have been a no-no. But uh, the law exists, but there's like no real penalties for it. There's only been two individuals who had been indicted under the Logan Act, Francis Flournoy in 1803 and John Jonas P. Levy in 1853, and they were not successfully convicted, and nobody has been charged under it since 1853. So, like I said, uh, if we were to go that route of a Logan Act, and we might need to start considering it, given that there are people that seem to think that they could take it upon themselves to negotiate with a foreign state on behalf of Canada or a future state of Alberta. It would definitely need to have more teeth and be written in such a way that it would actually be usable, because to just have it on the books, um, but it not being able to be used successfully, and according to this, uh, not used in almost 200 years to even charge anyone, kind of makes it not particularly useful, even if it's there. So, yeah, kits and cubs, we have Danielle Smith trying to block the formation of a new political movement that would oppose her, and by trying to restrict its name or trying to affect its ability to brand itself. And then we have a group of ragtag people who seem to have the support of Danielle Smith going to the United States and trying to negotiate terms by which Alberta separation can happen. And if they're negotiating that, if the terms are like $500 million loan that you can draw down on should you need it, um, they must not think Alberta has a lot of value, because that's going for super cheap. like really cheap. Then the third one, and this is one I don't want to talk about because this guy's gotten way too much attention already. But there's this American guy here who was in Canada. Uh, Apparently, the pretext is that he's here to worship Jesus. And he comes every year and tours Canada and plays some music, and everybody worships Jesus, and it's all just you know fun and good, clean worship, nothing else. But that's not quite true. It's not quite true. This person has some views that are particularly hateful towards certain groups, and not shy about letting them be known. And of course, all these views that are abhorrent are, of course, delivered under the fig leaf of pretense of being religious and in a celebration of Jesus or in Christ, um, because it's Christianity, but without the Christ part, basically. Um, Seems to be known in certain MAGA circles, is a bit of a star. And as this time has come to Canada with a tour called Let Us Worship, which you would think, if anybody who's been to church, when the priest gets up and says, let us pray or let us worship. But it's more like, let us worship. um, but what he's doing isn't necessarily worship, at least not in the way that I was raised. And even though I'm a very lapsed Catholic, I do remember the teachings, and I don't remember coming to places with messages of hate and exclusion. So it seems this person here had a tour of dates throughout Canada, and the primary objective of it, it seems, is to um, anger us and to irritate us and to poke sticks in our eyes in order to get us to react so that he can then go and cry to President Big Daddy or President Call Me Daddy and get him involved somehow. Um, so he's been going from place to place, and um, permits for him to be able to do his little performance are being revoked because the places in which he wanted to do all of these things are public spaces like Parks Canada sites, for example, which are supposed to be open to everyone and inclusive of everyone. So the people who have the right to grant a permit or not have decided to revoke permits. Now, a lot of people have been making stinks all along his tour path and saying, he wants to perform here. He wants to perform in this church. He wants to perform in this public space. That's supposed to be open and available to everyone. And he's coming there to preach a message of exclusion and intolerance. So these permits, as is the right of the people and the organizations that grant these permits, have been revoked. Now, of course, this then all gets twisted through the filter to say that it's an attack on Christianity. So there was an event that was supposed to take place. The event that was supposed to take place in Halifax then got moved because there's a church that decided to welcome them, and it was going to take place on their grounds. So as all of this is happening, he's saying, well, let's see if Canada still believes in free speech and freedom of religion. It's like, well, first of all, we have freedom of expression here, not free speech, right? And there are limits, like, for example, hate speech. And yes, we have freedom of religion. We always have, and it's perfectly fine, as evidenced by the fact that the permit was withdrawn for the concert to be able to take place at Parks Canada site, but that a church was able to offer you to come to their space and have your event there. So you were allowed to express yourself, and a church was free to do that for you. You just didn't have the right to a public venue You didn't have the right to reach, and you didn't have the right to an audience, which nobody has to guarantee you. Now, the tour's been moving across Canada some more, and then in Montreal, he was going to perform at a church, and then the permit was revoked there. And again, he turned around and said, "Oh my God, we're being persecuted for charged a fine because we want to worship." And it's like, no, you weren't charged a fine because you want to worship. You were charged a fine because you wanted to hold a concert without a permit. The concert happened to be in a church. But the fact that the concert is in a church doesn't absolve you of the duty to obtain a permit, which you did not do. So, your permit to perform, police were brought in and stopped you from performing because you wanted to perform without a permit. And he's turning around and says, "Now we need a permit to worship Jesus." No, you need a permit to hold a concert. Even if the concert is to worship Jesus, allegedly, you still need the damn permit. It's not a church event where the church choir is singing. Well, it seems that this person uh, is has done a couple of things here in Canada. For example, with his tour bus, um, terrorized, for all intents and purposes, a baby moose that got separated from its family. So again, this is a person that says, "Let us worship," but doesn't seem to have love for all of God's creation. Whether that be people from 2S LGBTQ plus community or animals that were separated from their mother. He thought it was just a great, hilarious joke to be chasing it down the road with the bus. And then later it seems that the back of his bus got rammed, he says, but there's no video of any of the damage. And then claims that he doesn't know who did it at the beginning of the video, but by the time of the video ends, he's absolutely sure that it's an enemy of worship waging war on Christianity, but he has no idea who did it. And then it didn't take too long before he started asking people for money. Because apparently he says it's cost him a lot. He's got no court cases to file. The only thing he had to do was just find other venues. And there have been people that have been calling him and offering other venues. So I'm not sure what his additional costs for which he has to raise money, but apparently he's doing the raise money thing. Please give me money. So I'm watching this guy go to town like this. He's driving in a bus, going from place to place, claiming that God loves you and is asking for money. Which reminds me very, very much of someone else who has been doing this the past few years. The person who was the inspiration for Beaver. Hmm? Romana Didulo? I don't know what the difference between these people are because there is no difference. It seems to be the exact same thing. Travel across the country in a vehicle claiming God loves you. You're doing things in the name of God while breaking laws, tempting people, taunting people, I should say, more than tempting people, and then asking them for money for the privilege. Except he's not a Canadian citizen. He's a guest in our home who's come into our home and purportedly is telling us in our own home how we should decorate and how it is that we should be living. I don't know what you think about Cubs, but I know that when I invite someone to my house and they start giving me their helpful and unsolicited advice about how my room would look much better, everything would look much better, if I did things their way. I don't take too kindly to that. And we're not. Now, apparently, there's a lot of other stuff going on, kits and cubs with him. Um, he's got a whole background of I guess, some petty crime, and people are wondering uh, about his ministry. Uh, it's how it's raising money, but what it says it's raising money for and how it's distributing it. And the numbers don't seem to be equivalent. So, but no big felonies yet. A lot of people are wondering, and even I was wondering, well, if he's got a criminal record, how is he here? Apparently, it's felonies that make it such that you can't come. I'm not a legal expert on that, but he is here, and he is here obviously to stir up shit. And at one point, posted a tweet stating that he doesn't believe he cannot believe the amount of persecution against Christians that is happening in Canada. It's even more than when he was in Iraq or Iran or whenever he was somewhere else like that. And it's so terrible that this is happening. He's just so persecuted. And it's and then said he's keeping receipts and he's got people in the White House that he's talking to. So now he's in our country, not only redecorating and telling us where to live, but threatening us. If you don't let me perform where I want, how I want, without permits, this, I am documenting all of this, taking these receipts, and I'm going to bring them to the guy who's been threatening to annex your country. I'm keeping receipts, which is really hilarious because based on some of the things he's accused of, bookkeeping isn't exactly his strong point. Just saying. But he's keeping receipts. So his Kits and Cubs is another D-list or C-list MAGA celebrity who's looking to climb to the A-list and has come to Canada uh, assuming that he would not be allowed to worship, hence let us worship, to create a type of public stink that he could then bring to the president of the United States, and thus, of course, create a narrative similar to the one that Putin has used in Russia, stating that Ukraine needed to be liberated from the Nazis that have been running it, while now Canada needs to be liberated because all of these Christians are being persecuted, apparently. This is very, very, very dangerous what this guy is doing here. So hopefully there's a group I want to reach out to that has been studying him and these types of movements and what they're doing. Hopefully we can get them to come on as a guest so that we can speak more about that. But the Danielle Smith connection is that he is supposed to be stopping in Edmonton at some point soon. And it seems that Danielle Smith is opening up her arms to him and is going to allow him to perform at the legislature. Again, the legislature, a building in which we're all supposed to be welcome. And it seems that his paperwork wasn't properly filed, but instead of saying, hey, your paperwork wasn't properly filed, so we're going to have to revoke your permit, she has assigned a team to help him get his paperwork right in time for him to be able to perform there. So we have Danielle Smith trying to make it less attractive for competition to her to set itself up and make it, if it does set itself up, make it such that people will not be interested in anyway because name recognition. And then we have her seemingly providing aid and comfort to a group of people who are negotiating on behalf of the future state of Alberta, a manner to break away and getting some financial means to help them do it. And then we have her offering a warm embrace to someone who has clearly come to Canada on a mission to have us branded as an anti-Christian country by the United States. That's on top of the weird Alberta Next forum, the fact that the RCMP had to send a public letter out to state that at least 4 statements that are in the little video that precedes the section about having an Alberta police force contain some factual errors. And again, if the RCMP is writing public letters saying that you're lying about us, you have to be lying pretty big, right? On top of the corrupt care thing, on top of there's a lot of things going on in Alberta that all seem to lead to her. I don't know what can be done to stop her. Yes, but again, I will say it. That woman is poison. That girl is poison. I'm just... the venom never stops. She never stops injecting just another dose of political fentanyl into the system. World's worst talent scout, if she's embracing this guy. But yeah. Yep. Preaches hate, preaches intolerance, uses his bus to terrorize animals. Oh yeah, there was also a claim of somebody throwing a smoke bomb at one of his concerts, although the video is very carefully clipped to show him having the smoke bomb in his can. Of course, there's no trail of smoke coming from, in the image, coming from where the kid's allegedly thrown, and it is smoke canister similar to the ones that people use in gender reveal. So, I mean, as far as we know, somebody could have thrown the can on the stage when it wasn't open, and then he popped it open, and then the camera turned on. Like, we don't know. We don't know what's came before. But Rebel News sure is helping them getting that message out, though. Rebel News has jumped on that, and so have a whole bunch of MPs. Michelle Rempel has written in support of him, said like, "Gee, I can't believe we're antagonizing this guy during the time we have a trade war." After he wrote that he had receipts, and I'm thinking, okay, Michelle Rempel Garner, member from Alberta, are you literally saying that we should allow someone, a foreigner, to come into our country and spread a message of hate and violate our laws just so that we can't have something worse with a trade war? Really? That's the price for which you're willing to fold. And there are a whole bunch of other ones that have joined into the fray. Aaron O'Toole has had a couple of things to say that seem to be, for all intents and purposes, let's obey in advance. For all intents and purposes. Just let him do what he wants so we don't have more trouble. That seems to be. And now this guy, anytime he gets any type of support from a Canadian elected official of any type of kind, is posting it now. Oh, we've got these other people. So Dallas Brody, who has broken away from the BC Conservative Party, which is already pretty extreme, to form the even more extreme One BC Party, is supporting. Attacking worshipers is a hate crime. Nobody's attacking worshipers. Burning churches is a hate crime. Nobody's burning churches as a result of this guy. taken place. The blatant persecution of Christians within Canada must stop. Mayor Jeremy Levi is another one. Bob Zimmer is another one. MP of Parliament for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies, uh, basically saying Section 2 of our Canadian Constitution says that everyone has the fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. And none of that has anything to do with you not getting a permit to perform a concert. And of course, Andrew Lawton. So yeah, very concerning that there are a whole bunch of conservatives that seem to be very eager to take what is going on here and decide to champion this, or to pretend that there's something going wrong. Aaron O'Toole, and this one kind of surprised me, says these public pressure-led decisions appear to conflict with the Charter of Free Speech and religious freedom in a democracy. Means you will hear things you do not agree with. Canceling such voices is wrong and drives polarization, but we haven't canceled the voice. We haven't told them you cannot perform anywhere in our country under any circumstance. We said you cannot bring messages of hate and exclusion to public spaces that exist for everybody to come and enjoy, and you can't perform concerts without a permit. Those are the two things. And when that is brought to Aaron O'Toole's attention, it's, from what I have read, it does not meet that standard. Please don't suggest I'm being dishonest. It is unbecoming of you. So again, that prosciutto thin skin has become symbolic of the conservatives. Dr. Christopher Wells, who's also a senator, says no one is stopping Sean Fucht from hosting his shows in Canada despite his criminal record. He has no charter right to have his shows hosted at public facilities, which must be safe and discrimination-free spaces that uphold community standards. Don't believe the martyrdom. So yeah, hopefully we'll have someone who knows more about this person and their past involvement and whatnot to be able to speak to this more eloquently on the show. But for all, Danielle Smith is a point in common, who seems to be creating space, making time for people that have these types of messages and these types of intent. And it would sure be nice if someone starts asking her some uncomfortable questions about the people she's willing to support. Very, very, that this behavior is coming from the people who are so quick to rush in to a room and mockingly say, elbows down. Oh, look at that, elbows down, ha ha, for absolutely everything that's going on, while they are adopting the position of belly down, face down, belly down, and perhaps even ass up. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. And I'm wondering why all these people are so ready to defend a foreigner's apparent right to freedom of expression and misrepresent what he's doing as an attack on religion, but aren't so quick to defend the Charter's provisions, which provide for non-discrimination against certain classes of Canadians, because these are elected representatives who are supposed to represent First, Canadians are not prepared to fight for freedom from religion as much as they are willing to fight for freedom of religion. Yeah, it it causes one to ask some questions about someone's priorities. Let's just say. All right, kids and cubs. I missed it in real time because I was on a roll, but it seems that the 200 IM race did take place. I was hoping to be able to catch it live and sort of a cheer as it was happening in real time. But we got involved in other topics. However, the race has taken place as the kids in the chat here have definitely let me know. And it was a good result. In fact, it was a pretty damn excellent result for Canada because it would appear that we have a double podium for Canada, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, was indeed a possibility. So yes, kits and cubs, it would seem that in the women's 200-meter IM, that Summer McIntosh has now gone 2-for-2, winning a gold medal, and that it was a double podium for Canada because Mary Sophie Harvey, who had qualified second, finished third overall in the race. So we have Mary Sophie Harvey, who touched the wall in 2 minutes, 9 seconds, and 15 100ths, which is only 6/100ths of a second in front of the fourth place finisher. So a very, very, very close race for the bronze, but the Canadian eked out a medal. And Alex Walsh of the United States was silver in 2:08:58, which is 17/100ths of a second faster than Mary Sophie Harvey. And then in first place, again, nearly 2 full seconds faster. And this is only 200 meters, kids and cubs. This is 4 lengths of the pool. Summer McIntosh coming in at 2 minutes, 6 seconds, 69 hundredths. So 2:06:69 to 2:08:58. She's phenomenal, kids and cubs. She's phenomenal. And that is now 3 medals for Canada in the first 2 days of finals of swimming at the World Championships. 2 gold by Summer McIntosh and 1 silver by Mary Sophie Harvey. So Canada is for women, is a 200-meter IM international powerhouse with 2 of the top 3 swimmers in the world in that particular event. Very, very exciting. And when the show is over, I am going to be going to watch on the repeat and see how it all went down. Would have loved to have seen it live, kids and cubs, but of course, you are my priority, and I am here with you. But yes, as soon as the show's over, I'm going to take a look at that because any opportunity to celebrate summer is a good opportunity in my books. So yeah, first and third, go Canada, go! It's good stuff. All right. Uh, in other news that doesn't have to do with weird stuff going on in Alberta, kids and cubs, we're about 4 or 5 days away from the trade deadline that was imposed by IQ47 himself. And it seems that, well, as we mentioned on the other show, that things are not going very well for him. He has been announcing other deals, quote unquote, but I'm not sure how much they are deals because when he announced the one with Japan, Japan turned around and said, "I'm not quite sure." But yeah, with just a few days left to go, according to Katie O'Malley. Um, New tariffs on Canadian exports are set to kick in. There's still no official word on what, if any, progress has been made towards striking a last-minute two-way deal, or for that matter, whether August 1st remains the final deadline for the White House to launch the next phase of Trump's global trade war. Earlier this month, Trump, quote, sent a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney threatening to impose 35% tariffs if Canada doesn't make a trade deal by August 1st. And basically trying to flip the script because it was our prime minister that originally said if there wasn't a deal by August 21st, I think it was, or something, that we would be putting in counter measures. And then Trump slid that date back and we decided to slide ours with them. And now Trump is the one that's turned around saying, well, now if you guys don't make it by August 1st, I'm going to slap these tariffs on. So he's basically trying to steal our game here. The White House has said those duties would apply only to goods not compliant with Canada US-Mexico Agreement on Trade. Canada is also being slapped with Trump tariffs on steel, aluminum, and automobiles. Will be hit by copper tariffs next month. He's also announced an increase in the softwood lumber. Um, those are not tariffs. I think they're duties. And he's talking about 200% on certain pharmaceuticals as well. So again, he's still trying to break us so that he can own us, and he's not happy that we're resisting. Speaking with reporters in Washington, D.C. last week, Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc said the Canadian negotiating team had, quote, made progress, but acknowledged that, quote, we have a lot of work in front of us. LeBlanc said he had a productive and cordial discussion with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, sorry, just happens naturally on my own, and plans to return to Washington next week, but, quote, added some caveats about the path to reaching a deal, the broadcaster notes. Quote, we're going to continue to work towards the August 1st deadline, but all of these deadlines are with the understanding that we'll take the time necessary to get the best deal that we think is in the interest of the Canadian economy and Canadian workers. Trump, however, offered a distinctly less optimistic take during a brief back and forth with reporters before boarding the presidential jet for a weekend trip to Scotland. Quote, Trump said Friday his administration hasn't had a lot of luck with Canada in its trade negotiations and hinted that Canada, quote, could be one where they just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation, Trump told reporters before departing on Marine One. Quote, we don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it, he added later. Oh, it seems that you've been very focused on it, but to just not getting what you want, considering what the ambassador had to say. Seems that it's been on your mind a lot. I mean, you think that we're mean and nasty. In any case, if past president is any guide, don't expect any of the key players on Canada's negotiating team, up to and including the Prime Minister, to offer much beyond blandly cautious, non-specific optimism until the clock strikes midnight on August 1st, and maybe not even then, as it's still possible, although growing less likely by the day, that the White House could announce another last-minute pause in rolling out the next wave of tariffs. And then Trump announced that he had this 15% deal with the EU to lower tariffs, and which caused a lot of people to turn around and say, "Yeah, but what are the what are the Europeans saying about it?" Because based on the announcement of his deal with Japan, Japan turned around and go, "We haven't seen this deal, if it's supposed to be a deal." But according to NBC News, Steve Kopak, President Donald Trump on Sunday announced a trade agreement with the European Union that would set tariffs at 15%, ending what had been months of uncertainty surrounding trade with the United States' largest trading partner. The tariff rate is a reduction from the 30% that Trump threatened on July 12th and the 20% he said he would impose on April 2nd. However, it is 5% higher than the 10% across the board that he threatened on Liberation Day. Announcing the agreement, Trump said the EU will not impose a tariff on U.S. imports. He added this agreement was satisfactory to both sides. Sure. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Sunday alongside Trump that the pact, quote, will bring stability, it will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. However, Trump said 50% tariffs on steel would remain unchanged and more tariffs could still be on the way for pharmaceutical products, which Ireland is one of the top sources of. Trump recently threatened 200 tariffs on pharma goods. In the meeting with von der Leyen, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said semiconductor tariffs could also be announced in the coming weeks. So they've got this deal, but there'll be more tariffs on various individual sectors and whatnot. So it's not a deal. It's not a deal. Outlining parts of the agreement, Trump said the European Union is going to agree to purchase from the United States $750 billion worth of energy. He said the EU would also invest $600 billion into the United States. It was not immediately clear what form that investment would take or over what time period it would be deployed. Trump added that EU nations will also be purchasing a vast amount of military equipment, though a definitive purchase amount was not yet set. The European Commission has been bulking up on its military supplies but has been focused on buying primarily from European companies so far. Trump said this arrangement would lead to the opening up of all of the European countries, which I think I could say were essentially closed. However, the EU buys hundreds of billions of dollars in US goods each year. In 2024, that value was nearly $400 billion. Yeah, such a closed economy to the United States. The agreement appears to closely mirror the trade agreement announced with Japan on Tuesday, under which Japanese imports will face a 15% import duty, which was also lower than Trump's earlier threatened. In a press briefing after the meeting with Trump, von der Leyen said that the 15% tariff would not stack on top of any other tariffs already in place. She said the US and EU have both agreed to apply zero tariffs to a number of categories of imports: all aircraft and component parts, certain chemicals, generic pharmaceuticals, semiconductor equipment, and some agricultural products. Quote, "We will replace Russian gas and oil by significant purchases of U.S. liquefied natural gas, oil, and nuclear fuels," she said. Von der Leyen said she estimates the union will buy $250 billion worth of the energy products per year over the course of a 3-year period. 15% is not to be underestimated, but it's the best we could get, she added, of the still high rate of duties that exports from the 27 European countries will face. 15% is certainly a challenge for some, but we should not forget it keeps access to the American market. Sounds a bit like a cave. But last year, the average U.S. tariff on imports from the European Union was just 1.2%, according to Capital Economics Chief Europe. According to Capital Economics' Chief Europe I cannot say that word. Chief Europe economist. Ireland's Prime Minister said in a post on X that he welcomed the deal, but, quote, "It does mean that there will now be higher tariffs than there have been, and this will have an impact on trade between the EU and US, making it more expensive and more challenging." Germany's prime minister responded by saying a trade conflict has been averted that would have hit the export-oriented German economy hard. This is especially true for the automotive industry, where the current tariffs will almost be halved from 27.5% to 15%. This is precisely where the rapid reduction of tariffs is of utmost importance. The European Union has been in active negotiations with Letnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer for weeks and had believed it was extremely close to a deal before Trump suddenly fired off the letter on Truth Social, saying he would hike tariffs to 30%. The EU's top trade negotiator made multiple trips across the Atlantic to meet with his U.S. counterparts and was set to speak by phone with Letnick again Wednesday, according to a spokesperson from the EU. Quote, "Imposing 30% tariffs on EU exports would disrupt essential transatlantic supply chains to the detriment of businesses, consumers, and patients on both sides of the Atlantic," von der Leyen said after Trump's July letter. Immediately after the letter, the EU said it would continue working toward an agreement of some type by the new deadline of August 1st, but the bloc continued to simultaneously prepare an extensive list of U.S. products against which it could apply retaliatory tariffs if an agreement weren't reached amid fears that Trump could end talks. Some of those products include Boeing aircraft, U.S. vehicles, and imports from politically sensitive states such as bourbon from Kentucky and soybeans from Louisiana. At the time of the announcement, the EU had about $100 billion worth of retaliatory tariffs ready to deploy. Agriculture and business groups had warned that 30% tariffs on the European Union could dramatically impact the price and availability of wines, cheeses, and pasta, and called the proposed levy incomprehensible. Cars and other vehicles produced in the EU could still face increased prices. The costs for our companies have already reached the billions, and with each passing day, the total continues to grow, the German auto trade group VDA told NBC News in a statement on July 14th. The 27 countries of the European Union are the United States' largest trading partner. Its $605 billion worth of imports into the U.S. surpass Mexico, China, and even Canada. The most valuable category of imports in 2024 was drugs and pharmaceuticals, primarily from Ireland, followed by autos, aircraft, and other heavy machinery from nations such as France and Germany. Trump has separately threatened to impose 200% tariff on any drugs imported into the U.S., though it would not be applied for at least 18 months. It was unclear if the deal with the EU would prevent that. So that's the deal with the EU. And you have some people in Canada trying to claim that somehow Canada is being disadvantaged and that we're losing out because of these deals, but in a very disingenuous way. So you have MPs like Kevin Vuong saying U.S. tariffs with Japan 15%, EU 15%, Canada 25% on non-CUSMA, 35% after August 1st, 50% on aluminum and steel. Well, the ones on 50% on aluminum steel also apply to Japan and the EU. So I'm not sure why he's singling those out as applying just to us. But yes, according to Robert Glasgow, who's an international trade and investment lawyer, says these statements are disingenuous for two reasons. One, the 50% steel and aluminum tariffs apply to everyone, like I just mentioned. And two, once proper preferential rates are claimed, you're looking at about a 60 to 80% of trade going to be CUSMA compliant. 2024 levels are massively understated for administrative reasons. In reality, on the vast majority of trade, Canada has been and remains in a vastly privileged position compared to either the EU or Japan. But what is going to cause some problems here is that the 15% for Europe and Japan on autos puts the American industry, because anything that's not CUSMA compliant is being tariffed at 25% and risking to go up to 35%, while other nations have a 15% deal. And this is allegedly supposed to increase production in the United States and ability to the United States to export. But streets in Japan and streets in Europe are smaller. So the types of cars that the United States is building for American roads, there's just no demand for them there. Number one. And number two, if you're allowing cars built in Japan and in the EU with very few American parts to only be 15% tariffed, but the ones that go across the border of Mexico and Canada that do have US parts are tariffed at 25 or 35 for anything that's not CUSMA compliant. You can see where there might start being some pressure from within the United States itself on President Trump for making these deals. Right? So, yeah, again, seeing deals like this rather than being a sign for us to panic should be a sort of a, let's sit back and see what else people are getting first. There really is no advantage in us moving first here at all. So yes, we'll see what else happens with that. But yeah, apparently a deal. And again, some Canadians tripping over their dicks to go belly down and declare a deal, this type of deal with the EU and this type of deal with Japan as being some type of failure for us. When no, like not even close. But don't leave it to conservatives. Don't run to conservatives for consistency, constancy, and congruence when it comes to facts, because you won't get it. So we've got a couple of days left on the countdown clock, and then we'll see what happens and what we're dealing with there. All right, kids and cubs, before we go, a little bit of Canadians who make us proud. Of course, we talked about summer, and we talked about Mary Sophie Harvey and Simone, who got us the silver medal in 20-meter high platform dive. But there are other things out there that some Canadians have done that will bring us some pride and some joy. As you know, the National Bank Open is going on right now, and we have two Canadian legends in the sport who have announced that they are retiring from the game. Vasek Pospisil being one who played his final match of his career last night, taking a set along the way over the person he was playing against. But Danielle Vasek Pospisil basically captained Canada, particularly for Team Canada tennis. Has been a key player in helping Canada secure the ATP Cup, the Davis Cup, you name it, has a Wimbledon championship in doubles with American Jack Sock, who was his partner at the time. Very accomplished young man, managed to reach number 25 in the world in singles as well. Has had a very, very distinguished career and has single-handedly kept us in Davis Cup competitions many times along the way, always answering the call for Canada. So played his last match yesterday, and tonight at 7 p.m. In Montreal, Eugenie Bouchard, who made a Wimbledon final a few years ago and had risen up to, I think, a number 5 or number 4 in the world as a singles player at one point. And she will be playing her final match today at 7 p.m. But we also have some up-and-comers. A gentleman named Dan Martin, who got a wild card into the qualification round for the Canadian tournament, won his qualification matches and entered the main draw. So even though he's a 561st in the world, he's playing in a Master 1000, which is one level below a Grand Slam tournament, for the first time in his career. And yeah, so playing way above his rank and getting a beautiful opportunity. Also, a young man named Nicolas Arsenault, who got a wild card into the main draw and surprised everyone with a victory against a Frenchman. Nicolas Arsenault is ranked in the 600s in the world, but won a first round Master 1000 match on his first try when given an opportunity. So, great achievements by these two young and up and comers, the biggest wins in their careers for sure. On the women's side, Victoria Umboko won her first round match. So did Rebecca Marino. And so did Bianca Andreescu, but again, that one was a little tricky. Bianca Andreescu, former Grand Slam champion from the U.S. Open, was playing Barbara Krejcikova, former Grand Slam champion from the French Open and Wimbledon, and that's in singles, and then a many-time doubles Grand Slam champion with then partner Katerina Siniakova. But on match point, I think it was um, running to hit a ball and rolled her ankle again and hurt herself again, as has happened many times in her career. And you could see her crying and saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" They taped her up. She got hobbled back on the court because she was 2 points away from winning, had two great serves, and ended up winning the match. She has a couple of days to recover, but nobody knows if she'll be able to play her second round match. And then Leila Annie Fernandez, who has been in a bit of a slump this year, out of the blue, won the tournament. I believe it was in Washington, D.C., the Citibank tournament there, having an absolutely fantastic run. It's her fourth career WTA title, and a very convincing win in the final, beating Anna Kalinskaya 6-1, 6-2. So clearly dominated that, and it's a 500 event, so Grand Slam -2. I believe it was a 500 event. Yes, and along the way, took out the number one player in the tournament, Jessica Pegula, who I think is top 5 in the world, and then the number 3 player in the tournament, Elena Rybakina, who was ranked number 13 in the world. So Leila Annie Fernandez entered this tournament ranked 36th in the world, and has climbed up to 24th in the world as a result of it, and is coming into Montreal on a very good winning streak. And that was the case for Bianca Andreescu as well, having won 6 games, 3 in mixed doubles and 3 in singles at the Hopman Cup, when she won that with Felix Auger-Aliassime, and then came into this to face Barbara Krejcikova, who again is a very highly ranked, I believe a top 20 player for sure. And Bianca Andreescu is currently ranked around 185th in the world as she's trying to make her way back up the rankings, coming back from injury. So some really great results from Canadians here at the National Bank Open, and hopefully they will keep on writing a very, very good story for us. All right, kits and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do, particularly when you include a little word of yours there to let them know what you think about our show, because you are influences in your circle. If you would like to help us in other ways, kits and cubs, well, actually, we'd like to help you first, because if you're not able to watch us live because you're busy and you might need to take us with you because you're on the go, well, hey, thanks to the right girl who sponsors our pod page, you can take us with you. All you have to do is scan this QR code that has appeared on our screen, or if you're listening, go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, and when you, with the hyphen between each one of those words, and when you click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you, just like that. If you would like to help us in other ways, then maybe you would like to journey on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. That QR code that has just appeared will bring you right there. And if you go there, we have 3 buttons for you: like, share, and subscribe that you can click. We are at 19,900 subscribers, so we're just a little smidge away from 20,000, and you can help us with that if you would come to our page and click subscribe. So thank you so very much for all of your help on that. And while you're there, Kits and Cubs, do take some time to look under the video tab, not only the live tab, because we have two uh, two Beaver Tales for you, which is our new video editorial feature here on the show. And we are hoping that you can take a look at that. Let's see, what else do we have, Kids and Cubs? Yes, if you would like to help us in yet other ways, maybe you would like to make a donation to help us with the cost that we incur to bring this show to you. And you can do that by going to our coffee page. You can scan that QR code that has now just appeared in the top corner, or you can go to coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And if you go there and you can make a donation to the Emergency Hydration Fund, because a moist beaver is always a happy beaver, and we work every day to fight the scourge that is dry beaver. So if you would like to make sure that your favorite beaver remains moist, a little bit of coinage in that jar does the trick. Now, Kits and Cubs, if you are buying Canadian and you want to avoid the USCE Tech Bros, hey, we're right with you and we're willing to help with that too. TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is our email address. Send us a little something there, and it's bank to bank, 100% Canadian. And bonus, we get 100% of your donation. So it's a win-win. It's a great thing. hmm Kits and Cubs, because democracy is something that you do. If you happen to be living here in Canada and you are not particularly fond of the idea of Pierre Poilievre getting a do-over, a contribution to independent candidate Bonnie Critchley might be something that you would want to consider. You are able to make a donation if you haven't donated the maximum in the most recent federal election. But these donations are eligible for tax receipts. So Kits and Cubs, donations at bonniecritchleyindependent.com is where you can send that. And remember, in a electoral district that's about 52,000 square kilometers wide, a little bit of gas money goes a long way. So if you're able to help in that way, we would very much appreciate it. Words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. Well, my words of wisdom for you today are a little gratitude goes a long way. We have a lot of people here in that first set of stories who are seem to be very ungrateful for the opportunity to live in Canada or even visit Canada for purposes of work. So I would like to see a certain number of people have a little more gratitude in their attitude. Let's put it that way. So if you have an opportunity to do that by leading by example, put a little gratitude in your attitude today. Thank the people that have showed up, for example. Okay. Well, Kids and Cubs, I think it could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And all together now, can I hear you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock? On 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. I like that very much. Okay, Kids and Cubs. Well, uh, I must oblige. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, Hot pepper sauce is made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. And kids and cubs, I know I promised it to you earlier, and I didn't have a way to work it in properly, but I do have a few words for you from our Mr. Grizzly, and he wants to just um, give a little bit of an update on what's going on and share a little gratitude. So, kids and cubs, for you, our dear friend, Mr. Grizzly.
Well, hey, kids and cubs. I didn't put my headset in, so I can't even hear what I'm saying, because I'm a little bit hard of hearing, as many of you well know. Just thought I'd pop in real quick to give you a greeting and say, hey, how are you? I hope you're doing well, and to let you know that I am doing my utmost to try and create additional content for you so that Mr. Beaver can air these clips on a daily or semi-daily basis, or as he sees fit. I'm just going to send them to him, and he'll put them up when he has the opportunity to do so. And I do miss you each and every morning, but as you all know, my life has radically changed with my new job, and I get up every day at 4 a.m., which isn't easy, but I'm grateful for the job, I'm grateful for the work, and I'm grateful for the income, because trust me when I say it was down to the nitty-gritty, it really was. Now, I'll get my first pay on the 31st, but it's only for 5 days' work, so it's still going to be a little slim pickings for Mr. Grizzly for a little while, but that's okay. That light at the end of the tunnel is there, and I see it getting brighter every single day. So between now and then, I'll just hold on tight, create some content for you where and when I can, and maybe we'll look at doing some later stuff in the day. Maybe go live some point later on in the day, possibly. We'll see. We haven't had a chance to really hash out all those ideas because, quite frankly, there's a lot of things happening right now that you're not fully aware of. There are things changing for the better. We are looking at some alternative solutions to things, and we'll leave it at that for now. There is going to be a big debut coming up in the near future. We don't have a ironclad date as of yet, but things will change, and when the changes are made, I hope to try and join you live as often as possible. It definitely won't be at the 7 a.m. showtime, because I'll have been at work for an hour at that point. And the environment I'm working in, there is no access to YouTube or phone. I can use YouTube for instructional videos, but that's it. I can't tell you anything more than that. It's a secure environment that I'm working in, and we'll leave it at that. So between now and then, whenever the new debut happens and when we have some new stuff to report to you, I will be discussing that with Mr. Beaver in the near future, so we can go over a strategy to give you some new information and some new things as time marches on. There's a lot happening for both of us, professionally and personally, and we're trying to get this show improved for you as much as we can and get it out to a wider audience, as we're going to start to promote it a little bit more and see if we can grow our market. Because after all, we do want to get paid for this. It does cost us money to put it on, and we're starting to get to the point where some of our costs are almost being paid in full, which we really appreciate from each and every one of you. And when it gets to the point where they're paid in full, maybe we'll see a small, but hey, any profit is a good profit, right? So I thank each and every one of you for tuning in Monday to Friday. I'm apologizing again because I haven't seen you in so long. Sometimes that's just how life goes, you know. You gotta take your shot when you have it, and I had a shot presented to me, and I took it. I thought it was going to be a little bit different. I thought I was going to be working 8 to 4 or 8:30 to 4:30, but as it turns out, no, it's 6 to 2 Monday to Friday, which takes some getting used to. I've done 7 to 3, so getting up at 5 a.m. was no big deal. Getting up at 4 is a bit of a challenge, but as each day passes, I find it a little bit easier than the next, or the previous, yes. Got to get that right. Anyway, folks, I do love and appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in as often as you can and for sending us the commentary that you do. We greatly appreciate your input. I want to send out a big shout out to Uncover the News for sending us all of the info and promoting the heck out of us. We really do appreciate all that you do for us. It's very kind of you to do it because you do it of your own free will and of your own time, and we really do appreciate that. So thanks for tuning in, folks, and I will get back to see you as soon as I can. Not sure when that'll be live, but I will create as many clips as I can over the next few days so that you still have a little bit of grizzly in your morning. You take care now. We'll see you soon. Bye.
That was a not particularly growly grizzly growl. So hopefully we'll have some interventions from Mr. Grizzly this way until such time as we can figure out what we're doing next. As Mr. Grizzly mentions, yes, we are working behind the scenes here to make some changes that hopefully we'll have an opportunity to announce to you very soon, because as Mr. Grizzly says, we do not have a firm date, but there's some decisions being made here in order to position the show in such a way that we might be able to better reach an audience that would be specifically interested in this type of content, and have some opportunities to work with people, with other people with whom we admire, but we haven't had a chance to bring on the show yet, and which gives opportunities for new alliances and new types of content and all that kind of stuff. So, and as we talked about, as Mr. Grizzly talked about as well, because I do miss him on the show, if we can find some other way to get him on a little more regularly, which might mean rebroadcasting our shows at 7 o'clock in the morning rather than doing them live, or at least a couple of days a week, maybe not doing them live. We don't know exactly how it's going to pan out, but doing the shows alone, it's okay, but I find they're better when I have my friend here, my brother from another mother. So if there's any way that we can try to do that without disrupting the DAMFAM that we've come to build here on our morning shows when we do them live, we would like to be able to do that. Not sure if there's a best of both worlds, but if there is one, we will definitely try to find one, because like I said, the show is just better with Mr. Grizzly here. All right, kids and cubs, I will not keep you any longer. This was a longer Easter egg than usual, but I will not keep you any longer. Please go out, and if you have the opportunity, watch more of the World Aquatics, cheer for Canada, and we'll be back with you tomorrow, and we'll have a show for you, and it'll be a good one. I have a feeling. All right, amour et bisous.